I am a huge fan of superhero stories. I think that it is so exciting to see a hero rise up and deal with some sort of major threat or crisis and save the day. There's just something so inspiring about seeing a hero rise up to face some sort of villain in order to save the people around them. And when you really think about it, that's kind of the point of a superhero story in the first place, isn't it? To inspire people. That's why I think that the best type of superhero story is one that involves a redemption arc. Sure, it's cool to see a hero who's just simply born different make the decision in order to help people on their own volition, and it's also interesting to see someone who's got a good nature happen to be in the right place at the right time, but there's just something that's just more inspirational about seeing someone who's not a great person actually actively make the choices in their life to better their lives and to use this second chance to help others. Now, when I was younger, I admit I was a brat. I was very selfish, I was very self-entitled. I'm not a big fan of the person I used to be. And there's something about watching superhero redemption arcs that just really inspired me to want to be a better person. There's a whole lot of other things that inspired me too, but I would say that my love of redemption arcs, being born from superhero stories, is actually probably the biggest factor in it. Now, I would say that my favorite superhero that was made from the result of a redemption arc is probably Tony Stark. I remember growing up, I was a huge nerd for the Marvel movies. I always kind of steered away from DC, kind of out of bias. I've grown out of that, thankfully. But yeah, growing up, it was almost exclusively Marvel movies. Not any of the comics, though, because, I didn't get my hands on any of the comics, but the movies I thought were really good. Most of them. I think the thing that makes Tony Stark stand out amongst all of them, though, is the fact that not only is his strictly a redemption arc, but also on top of that, not only is he self-made, but he also feels like the most human character. Thor also feels pretty human, but after he got retconned into being a comic relief character, the movies kind of really doubled down on showing how much of a failure he is, and I guess to some people depression's funny, I guess? And with Steve, his whole entire thing with his self-righteousness comes from the fact that he's Captain America, and whenever it comes to his obsession with the past, it always makes him seem kind of like a hypocrite, so it's really funny how the movies always say about how perfect he is. Whereas with Tony, he's just an ordinary guy. Sure, he's a billionaire, but, he's ordinary in the sense that he got thrown into a war zone when he's so not accustomed to it. And the fact that he has PTSD, survivor's guilt, and all that, his crippling anxiety and panic attacks, it really shows how human he is. He feels like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders, that eats away at him, and yes, he makes mistakes, but the nice thing about it is that he owns up to it. Not like in Legends of Tomorrow, or as we call it, Legends, because it sucks and they're not legends. On that show, they cause every single mess in the show, and instead of really fixing it to really make up for it, they always wind up making a bigger mess and only got involved because of the fact that people think that they're worthless. So it's almost exclusively an ego thing, and their involvement always makes things so much worse. Whereas Tony, he will actually own up for the stuff that he did. He'll try to right his wrongs, and that's what makes it so much better and different from that show. Tony only created Ultron because of his crippling fear of what if they lose to Thanos, and then wanting to sign the Accords is simply because of wanting to take responsibility for the innocent people who died because of that battle. That's the biggest difference between Tony Stark and the Legends, because the Legends, they only ever create a bigger mess to cover up the mess they already made, and they get called heroes for it for no actual reason. Whereas Tony, he gets vilified so many times simply for making a mistake, when everything he's doing is for his wants to protect everyone. So with the fact that his story is in fact a redemption arc, it makes sense that so many of his villains would be because of the sins of his past, or the sins of his family's past. But it's kind of a little bit ridiculous how every single Spider-Man villain is because Tony apparently did something to them. Like, the thing with Spider-Man Far From Home. Like, seriously, the guy literally just gave his life to save everyone in the universe, and you pick right now to go on your whole revenge story? It's ridiculous. Mysterio kind of reminds me of the Legends because he's being called a hero for literally creating a mess and pretending to clean it up. So that's kind of ironic. Speaking of Tony Stark's death, let's talk about that for a minute. Yeah, I know, halfway through the video I finally get to my main point, because the point of this video is, I think that Tony Stark's death in Endgame was stupid. I know a lot of people aren't going to be too happy about the fact that I dislike something about Endgame, but like, the movie does have flaws, and I feel like it's the 10 years of build-up is why a lot of people like to ignore them, because there is a lot of hype behind it, there's definitely a lot of payoff, but I just don't think it's actually justified to have him die in the movie. The main theme of the movie is loss and trauma from said loss, and trying to find a way to move past it, or maybe even regain what was lost, if even just a little bit. Tony's main storyline in the movie is that after literally his greatest fear that he's been worrying about this whole entire franchise literally happens. He finally, after 5 years, has a family. He's married to Pepper. He has Morgan. And he literally says in the movie that this is his second chance. They are his second chance. And he doesn't want to lose what it is that he gained during this 5 years. So with a movie that's entirely centered around getting back what was taken from you, it seems really bleak and depressing. The fact that Tony has to sacrifice himself for the sake of her survival, especially when there's like 20 different people who should be very capable of beating Thanos in that battle. And then there's the fact that all of this happened because Steve refused to have Wanda just kill Vision before Thanos arrived. And because of his whole, oh, we don't trade lives thing, that ended up causing half the universe's population to snap away. Now, there's nothing wrong with Steve wanting to do that. It's completely good to not want to kill someone. It's the fact that Endgame completely actually goes in the opposite direction. Because the reason why they win is because the other Steve in Tony's life, Doctor Strange, decided to trade away Tony Stark for everyone's survival. Now, it's not like Tony was not in character or anything, he's completely in character when he does it. He kind of almost exclusively does things that puts himself in danger over other people, if you actually look at all of his movies. The part I don't like about it is that Tony's fear throughout this entire thing, the thing that drove him to make so many mistakes and has caused him so much panic and grief, is the threat of what if they lose against Thanos. And then lo and behold, they did. So there's even the slightest chance that they can undo that mistake. And Tony has to be the one to pay for it when he's the one who's been so freaked out about the possibility of losing this whole time. How does that seem fair? It completely changes the perspective on Tony as a character, because now instead of going from a rich brat who becomes a superhero, now he's a lonely guy with every time he tries to have any family, it's stripped away from him. And literally his heroism ends up causing him to be so self-destructive and almost throw his life away until he finally actually does do that. He may have saved a lot of people, and that's an understatement, but with each new installment into the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Endgame, suddenly it makes the sacrifice seem a little bit more shallow, as there's just another threat looming in the distance. And I'm not saying that Robert Downey Jr. is obligated to come back or anything just because one fan is just complaining about a particular scene of a movie he doesn't enjoy very much. But it just kind of leaves a sour note on the character as a whole, knowing how it ends. Of course, it still is a redemption arc, but there's just so much more of a bitter tone that literally becoming a better person is what led to him eventually dying. I want to make it clear, I'm not saying they can't kill a hero ever. I just want to point out how the point of a superhero story in general is first and foremost supposed to be to inspire people. And I'm just saying this, but maybe killing off the hero who is actually being punished for wanting to do the right thing might be kind of defeating the purpose. It might be putting the narrative before the actual purpose of the story itself. I know I don't speak for everyone. I know that a lot of people love this movie. I'm just simply stating They keep on killing heroes in a lot of different movies, and I just don't feel inspired when I see the person who's trying to inspire me die because they try to do something good. But that's just me. If you liked or disliked this video, do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if, say, for instance, you wanted to help someone out, someone like me, for instance, you could always support me on Patreon. Anyway, this has been Jin from The Calm, here to express my opinions and to wish you a nice day.